go live anyway on that one. So, welcome to this Saturday, and I am excited about just, the whole conversation. So I have gone through and talked a little bit about, some of my challenges over this past week and some of the insights and giving up this thing of resistance, because what you resist persists. And so when we get in our mindset that we are going to be in a space of just, watching the ways in which we respond to things, I think it's a beautiful thing. When I was talking to Dr. Brown the other day, I was telling Dr. Brown about how this one guy that I dated, just was not ruffled by the things that happen in life. As a matter of fact, my friend Alan is like that. I mean, he is a guy for which information is power. And so now that he has information at his fingertips, I'm telling you, everything that happens, he flips out that phone, and he is like a master at finding and locating and being persistent until he has an answer and then the solution. And so I like having that type of energy around me, because it's not necessarily I want to say it's not necessarily what I grew up with. My mother was a worrier. And I would hear, I learned what Murphy's Law was early. The waiting for the other shoe to drop, or, this idea that, that calamity was always right around the corner was real. If it's not one thing, it's another. Money don't grow on trees, and this feeling of not enoughness all the time. I got that very clearly. My dad was one that was get it done kind of guy. And so when something happened, my dad was like the football player that he grew up as, like whatever it is, we gonna power through this mug. So it was a different way, but always with this idea of an adversary that needs to be handled. So while he may come through like a linebacker, it is because there is something that was facing him. So this notion of easy was not one that I grew up with. Nobody was pressing the easy button in my house. And so I am always thankful that I am around people who demonstrate for me, or who, and this is something that I am starting to remember for myself. That, I can say to my, and y'all may hear me say this, like, I've been here before, right? I have had this issue before, or I've had worse than this happen before, and I am still here. There is not this feeling, I have this confidence now in my own resiliency. And so it is really wonderful, so for me it was a line of demarcation. And that line of demarcation does not mean that I think that some man is going to swoop in and rescue me. I don't have that damsel in distress kind of feel. Because I am the one that's riding on the horse now. And so this idea of, I know that things come up so that I want to use the glory of God can show through. I don't need to have, so first off, there was the, I didn't know, I didn't know, right? Because that wasn't what I saw. I mean, when bills were due, there was frustration. There was, irritation, those kinds of things. That was my thing at home, because that was what was demonstrated. Um, and this idea of being happy about paying your bills, or that you can pay your bills, to be grateful, wasn't modeled. And so when you think about what it is that you are modeling, and somebody is always watching, right? It may be our children, it may be our friends, it may be family, but somebody is always watching. This friction that we carry around with us is a choice. And yes, you may be programmed to operate in one regard, but the moment you take notice, the moment you catch yourself, that you become aware of your reactions, you can change so that it is not a reaction, but rather a response. How do I respond in situations like that? And that takes forethought, right? So take a deep breath, learn how to breathe deeply. Suck it in and feel that power that the breath has, and then move into what it is that you are doing. So today, when, as I was prepping, because, not necessarily prepping, I do my meditation in the morning time, and and I tell y'all this often, is if you watch me all the time, but if you don't, you don't. So in the morning times, and after I do all of my outside stuff, so anyway, I'm not going to go through all of that stuff, but I sit down for meditation every day. And I open up my little book now, because I used to be doing the Course in Miracles. I've done other books in the morning, but now I'm doing this Yamas and Niyamas book as a part of my yoga teacher training. This one is by Deborah Adele, I guess. And the Yamas and Niyamas. And so I'm just finishing up this section on the Niyama, or the Yama, called, what is this? This one, I don't even know what this particular section was called. Not that it matters. It is reading and understanding the principles for yourself, and getting it through that. So let me this is the question that was asked for me to ponder for the week. So at the end of each chapter, there are questions to ponder, things to think about, in ways in which you can apply these ideas. So in this one, it's all about taking time out to reflect and journal about things. And part of my reflection and in part my journaling includes that I get to talk about these things. And so it says in here that this month, it says we framed the exploration with the following. No, this is not the one. We framed this month with the following statement from Joseph Campbell. Now, y'all know I am a Joseph Campbell follower. I love the work around ideas, mythology, psychology that Joseph Campbell has done, and he has left a great body of work for people to explore. I had not heard this quote from him, but it totally sounds like something that he would say. And this is the question, or this is the statement that was put at the end of this particular chapter. And here is what he said. It says, be true to the purpose and limits of each thing in existence. to the purpose and limits of each thing in existence. It says, behave purely and serve purely the reality of what you are given by making every human function, without exception, a religious act of sacrifice and worship. Can you imagine that? Without exception, a religious act of sacrifice and worship. Every act, right? It says making every human function, without exception, a religious act of sacrifice and worship. I had to sit with that. I read a powerful book one time. It was powerful for me. And it was called Acting as If the God in All of Life Mattered. And it was about, actually I found out later that this place was pretty famous for the miraculous growth of vegetation and all of these things in a particular place. I want to call the name, I don't know if it was Foundhorn or something, but anyway, there was it was an amazing thing, and out of that came this wonderful book that talked about respecting all of life, nature, the air, the worms, everything, acting as if it all mattered. And when I read that book, there are a lot of books that can have the ability to change your life, right? To change your perspective and how you see things. Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love was one of the first books that totally altered my life. I remember back in the day reading a book, Hello, God, It's Me, Margaret. And that book made me feel worthy, right? It made me feel worthy of being seen by God, because it made it, I did not think that I was, worthless after reading that book, but it wasn't life-changing. Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love was life-changing. Then when I read that book, Acting as If the God in All of Life Mattered, it changed me in a very different way. Because what it said to me was that the whole world was alive. That this is not some hocus pocus, but rather even the grass, even the birds, even whatever it is, everything is alive, has an intelligence, and can be responsive. I was watching a guy yesterday, Felipe Boyan, I do believe it was. He had a really good talk about just this thing about how a lot of times people have this tendency to believe that after a certain point they need not grow anymore, that there is nothing else that they need do. And he says it couldn't be anything further from the truth. That as we learn and as we grow, as we move and as we put more and more demands on our body, it responds in kind. It has a regenerative process that engages when we engage it. But if you lead this sedentary, blah kind of life, if you just give up the will to move forward, he talked about that's the time at which the deterioration begins. And so what you may have built up through going to school, it reverses and goes backwards when you stop growing. So when I read this particular quote from Joseph Campbell, it was interesting because it reminded me of this type of idea that every act can be viewed as a sacred, without exception, a sacred act. And so a religious act of sacrifice and worship. So can you imagine that all of the food that you eat, if you had a relationship with it that said, man, I know that your life has ended in order to add to my own, even a piece of lettuce, right? It's in that growth stage, it's in that stage of becoming, and then we pluck it. Its life then is gifted to us to add to us. And so the act of eating is both a sacred act of sacrifice on some behalf, and then a one for gratitude that we must have, that it is, that it's giving for us. Now, for some of y'all eat other kind of life forms, and that too is a sacrifice. And even though you didn't have to, kill it or put it on the altar or whatever it is, nonetheless, there has been a life sacrifice so that yours might continue. And so just to review everything as a sacred act, it was so good. But that's not the thing that got me. It says for week one, after you've read this statement and after I've read this here, all of this section, it's called brahmacharya. Brahmacharya. And brahmacharya is literally, it means to walk with God. It invites us into the awareness of the sacredness of all of life. And it says this guideline calls for us to leave greed and excess behind and walk in the world with wonder and in awe. Not just because here is the thing. Here in this country, when you don't recognize that something has sacrificed its life for you, maybe you think it's nothing to waste it, to throw it away, to not appreciate it, right? My dad used to look at us like, you better clean that bone, so to speak, like something actually died that you might have that food. Some process is taking place that you might have that. You better act like you know it, right? So don't just throw away stuff as if you don't recognize that in itself. Let us walk lightly in the world. So here, week one, I know I'm preaching. I'm preaching. Week one, it says this week, examine your beliefs, values, habits, and actions around sexuality and sexual activity. I'm putting a pause there so you can breathe there. Examine your beliefs, values, habits, and actions around sexuality and sexual activity. Now, for some of y'all, that's going to be right? That gives you a moment of like, ooh, wait, what? Notice, it says, notice what your culture, the media, your faith community, and your family have to say about this topic. Is it permissive? Is it judgmental? Is it in some cases and not in others? Is it telling you to tap it down? Is it telling you to, ooh, that's nasty? Is it telling you, ooh, that's beautiful? What is it that use your belief, values, habits, and actions around sexuality and sexual activity? This is such a good question. And then notice if you are acting on outside authority, or if you are acting on your own beliefs. That is so good. Where? And remember, all this week I've been talking about this idolatry. Where does your, what do they call it? Locus of control. Where is that located for you? Is it out there? In other people's opinions? Or right here? I just, that is a wonderful question. How do you feel about your sexuality and your sexual activity? And does that show? Do you see yourself as a sexual being? Are you comfortable with your own sexuality, yourself? Right? Are you comfortable with who you are or who you are becoming? And your comfort or discomfort, is it based on your own feelings and belief or those that you have accepted from others? What's the truth that you're living? Oh, so good. That's so good, y'all. That is one of those things that's just like, yummy. I mean, that's a question that I could just kind of, but you know what, even in that, I want to say, oh, I could sit down with some friends and maybe a glass of wine and explore that idea. And yet and still, I know that even trying to talk about it with others does not work if they have not done their own work. Because you will meet so many people that's just like, ooh, that's not a conversation. That's not something that you talk about. Or, there's all these other kinds of things that just kind of keep people from, and maybe they'll talk about it and talk about me afterwards, but not in the process of. And that too is interesting. So I think that was just such a juicy question. I had to bring my book in here. That's part of my morning ritual. Yeah, so let me read for you the daily guide. And this is such a good sleeping weather. I did sleep late too, so I recognize that folks may not be all into this morning. But it's all good. No shade, no judgment. So let me read to you for today's daily guide. These were written during the month of June by Reverend Christy Hardwick. I'm sending her love and light. As I also send what is my brother's name? Y'all give me a second. Well, let me say who else I want to send some blessings to. I'm sending out blessings to Vanita, who is one of my dear yoga and teachers, one of my first yoga teachers, and I'm trying to call this man's name, and it has escaped me for some reason. And I don't even know why. I know his last name, but I'm not picking up on his first name at the moment, and that is perplexing to me. Oh my gosh. Among my friends at that. I don't even want to call it now because it's taken me so long to think of it. I don't even want to call it. That's crazy. That's just crazy. So I'm going to leave it alone. There it is. I see it now. I don't even want to say it now. So whoever that is, right? Y'all just bless whoever that is that I'm thinking about. Just sending blessings healing blessings. I mean, I got so many people. As a matter of fact, I need to actually put my prayer list, write my prayer list out and put it up here on the thing. Prayer list, and I'm gonna write down Larry because I want him to be all better. I'm gonna write down Vanita because I know she is better. Who did I just say? I'm gonna write down Reverend Raymond because I know he is better. I'm going to write down, who else am I sending out blessings for? It just seems like I just said some names, and I'm just drawing a blank here. This is crazy. Debbie, I'm sending out, that's not who I'm sending out blessings for, but Debbie anyway, nonetheless. I'm gonna work on my prayer list because y'all, that's just a doggone shame. I need to just be able to rattle off all the people that I'm praying for. It's all good. So that is just like yeah, okay, whatever that is about. I'm having a senior moment, and I don't have senior moments. Okay, so I'm reading today's daily guides, and like I was saying, these are written by Reverend Christy Hardwick. We're sending blessings to her for this amazing job that she has done this month with our daily guides. These daily guides come with 2 quotes, and they are followed by an affirmation. She this month has been taking her quotes from song lyrics to a large degree, and I have found this a wondrous romp in an experience in just thinking through these lyrics. And I will be listening to some of these records, or some of these songs, we don't even call them records anymore, as I go through this weekend. I got to write these out because they have been good. Today, her lyrical choice comes from a record by Leanne Womack, which I love, and it's called I Hope You Dance. And the way that it starts out, she doesn't use the whole thing, but the way that this stanza starts out is, I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. I hope when one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me you'll give faith a fighting chance. This is the part that she puts it in. When you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I love that song. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I love it. I love that song. The whole sentiment around it. And then from Ernest Holmes, A New Design for Living, she uses the quote, just as children enter into play or into a game, there is a lightheartedness, a delight, a sense of fun, sheer exuberance in the joy of living. So this is what Reverend Hardwick wrote for today. She says, I love to play games, especially like spelling games or dominoes, silly, easy games that make me smile in relaxation or bring out a laugh. I like to play in childlike ways as well. For example, I painted a whole wall in our garage with amateur renditions of trees, flowers, and rainbows. I will sit at the beach and color in a journal making shapes and mandalas. Another way I play is to dance. When I'm alone, I put on a favorite jam and move around the room in whatever way feels good to me. I tend to stay in my head a lot, so playfully moving my body is enlivening and shakes loose some of my seriousness. In our Science of Mind teachings, we get caught up in focusing on thinking. Fun gives our minds a rest and lets the greater mind find an opening to impart some beautiful insights and wisdom. When do you give yourself permission to play, to be silly? Do you ever have a thought to do or say something and then your inner critic pipes in with, "That is ridiculous"? No, you will not wear a tutu to the beach. No, you will not put on a Halloween costume in December. Why not? Some of us think to be spiritual, we must be serious, predictable people whose every action is on purpose. Not in my understanding. Our teaching could move even further and faster if we were more playful. And so the affirmation that she puts with this is today I accept my silliness and let myself play in whatever wonderful ways come to my mind. And she is so right on. Good morning, Sean. How are you? She is so right on with that, because I can be very serious. I can come across very serious. And one of the things that I love to do too is to dance and to lose myself in movement. And I feel a lightheartedness about that. When I am I'll say also when I'm on stage or when I'm talking, there is a lighthearted fun to it for me, almost like just taking off for a run. I tell people it's tippy-toeing through the tulips for me. It is so much fun, and I experience that same feeling, that same lightheartedness when I am walking barefoot in the grass. And so I try to do that often too. So whatever it is that makes you feel joy, have fun, be lighthearted, give yourself permission to do that. To do just a little of that. It's the weekend. What else do you do with the weekend, right? And some people have to use supplements like alcohol or drugs or something like that to get that same kind of lose yourself kind of feeling. But just try out some different things for, to see what it is that you can lose yourself in. If nothing else, just ask. You don't even have to ask somebody else. Just laugh, right? Just laugh. You can just start laughing about nothing, but feel what that laughter feels like in your body. And then when you catch yourself laughing, what you'll begin to do is laugh at yourself. And that laughter just lightens things up. So just remember today to laugh. Try it. I mean, it's awesome. It is awesome. Give yourself permission to play. All right, so I'm going to jump off of here. I thank you for watching this, whoever watched it, whenever you watched it. Blessings to you. And saying yes to all the blessings that I'm sending out. Wow, y'all, this month is almost out of here. It's like at the end. So we'll be into July in just a second. So let's all tippy toe on out of here. All right. Blessings to you, and I will see you tomorrow. I'll be on at 1 p.m. It's a Sunday. And then following that, Monday, I'll be back around 8:30 on Monday. I'm going to go and do something with my wonderful locks here. And then I will show my face at Porch Fest and a couple of places, a couple of the houses that I know will have activity there. I'll be out for that as well. So if you see me, say hey. All right. Love and blessings to you, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for being here.